I think we're live.
So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the One Movie Film Festival Day 2 live Q&A. I'm your host, Elliot Turner, here with Tom Spencer. And our special guest is Paul Joseph from our festival partner for this month, Missing People.
Hello.
And in a mere few moments, we'll be joined by the director of Sometimes Always Never, Carl Hunter. So if you have any questions, just post them in the comment section, and we will ask them to our guests.
Okay. Well, thank you, Elliot. And just a little. By the way, good evening. By the way, I was just meant to say to you that we apologise if you were looking forward to Sometimes Always Never this past weekend. It was supposed to be our day 2 of the festival. The other films are on the Tape Community Music and Film website, but there's been a technical hitch, so we couldn't show the main film Sometimes Always Never this past weekend. But we're going to show it as an Easter treat for you with a Good Friday and Holiday Saturday and I think Holiday Sunday as well. So it's going to be shown this weekend instead. And the other films stay online anyway, so they'll be there anyway. And also as well as the films from day 1 as well, when we showed Sanctuary. So that's going to be on there for you. That's going to be this weekend. And so if you want to tune in, there'll be, as I say, it'll be a great Easter treat for you, so have a look at that. Okay, so okay, Elliot, so should we make a start then with Carl and with Paul? Yeah.
Yes, Carl. My first question is, what inspired you to make this particular film?
Well, a lockdown film, in a way, was it was an obvious thing to do because we were all locked down. And I think when you're a filmmaker, or if you're interested in the arts, in whatever particular medium, whether it's painting or sculpture, or film or photography or music, I think one of the great things about the world of arts is you react to something. That's what's good about the world of arts, is it's nearly always a reaction to something. So it just seemed like too good an opportunity to not do something, because in years to come, that will now be embedded in the history, well, in our histories. So I thought I'll do something, but I'm not sure what. And I started wandering into Liverpool, and Liverpool's a place I know like the back of my hand. And I'm used to it being fairly populated. And then when I went into Liverpool, all of a sudden, there was no one there, which might not sound that extreme, depending on where you're from in the world. But given it's a city which is a very busy city, to then go there and there's no one there was just a very strange feeling. So I started to photograph it. And then when I had a collection of photographs, I thought I'll try and make a film based on stills. And I thought stills would be interesting to use because it was almost like the world had been put on pause, like pausing a film. Well, a still photograph is a frame in a film which has been paused. So I thought, why not make a film which is full of paused images of Liverpool? So it was partly out of an itch to do something about a time in history which we may never see again, or, worryingly, we may see a lot more of. But that was the reason anyway, to document a moment in time.
I was going to. My next question is for Paul regarding the missing persons, and my first question to you, Paul, is how did missing persons begin?
So the charity was set up in 1995 when the estate agent Susie Lamplugh went missing, and the founders of the charity were family friends of Susie Lamplugh's parents, and they realised that at the time there were kind of no support services for families when somebody went missing, and also there wasn't really any liaison between the police and families at the time. So the charity was set up from that, kind of in their bedroom, and then it wasn't long after that the charity was set up that the Cromwell Street murders, Fred and Rose West, all that was uncovered, and obviously at the time that involved a lot of bodies being found that weren't identified, and the charity assisted the police a lot in kind of helping them match up some of the bodies to people who are missing. And so the charity now, for over 25 years, has been supporting families and people who are missing themselves, leaving home, people who are running away. It's a brief history.
Okay.
I have a question for Paul. How many calls have you had over this past year during the COVID pandemic?
I don't have the exact figure to hand, but we normally get about 50,000 contacts a year, and that has kept up in the past year. We take phone calls, we also respond to texts and emails, and we also talk to people on live chat, and we definitely found that hasn't reduced during lockdown. There have been less incidents of missing initially. I think because people were out and about less, but also we've been finding lots of people who are contacting us because they're really affected by the effect of someone being missing, and but also people just having a really tough time at home. And if you think of what's going on at home, if you're already in a tough situation and it's not a happy place, and then you're suddenly there 24 hours and can't leave. We had like young people who'd come back from university. Imagine your first term away at university is freedom, and then suddenly you're back at home and all sorts of different things. So we've had lots of contact from people who've been having a really tough time. And for us, we always say to people, contact us at the point where you think things are getting too much and you have to leave. And so that's when people have been in touch. And of course, families who already have someone missing feeling a lot more isolated because they're stuck at home and don't have a lot else to do, and so that really compounds the situation they're going through.
My next question is for Carl, and by the way, I think there's
Yes, we do have some questions from the audience. Take Music and Film on YouTube asks, how did the subject of a missing person find its way into the story of Sometimes Always Never? And that's a question for Carl.
Well, that's Frank, who wrote the script. I kind of always had this idea for a long, long time about a missing person in the script. I don't know where that came from, but what did happen, and this is going back quite a while now, is in Liverpool, I've got a few friends who had family members that went missing. And there was one story in particular which was quite heartbreaking. And it's not somebody I know very well. I just know from drinking in pubs. And then when I was developing the script, I was speaking to this person one night in a pub, and I told him the story. And that was it. I just told him what the script was about. And then I saw him about a year later in the same pub, and we picked up the conversation. And he said something very strange. He said, will you make that film? And I said, well, I hope I make it. That's, I want to make it. But that's down to people funding a feature film. But I want to make it. Why? And then he said, because my brother went missing many, many, many years ago. And it must be, I'd say, he's older than me. And he was about 18 when his brother went missing. So it's a long time ago. And he said, which I was so shocked at, was that to this day, every single night without fail, He takes the same walk around the same part of Liverpool every single night, and he checks every single homeless person that's in a doorway or in the street or in a corner or whatever, just in case there's that one 50-year-old man, 55-year-old man, or whatever age you'd be now, just in case it's him. And I was completely thrown by that. And that found its way into the script, not in a kind of note kind of way, but it gave the film a sort of heartbeat and an understanding of Bill Nighy's kind of day-to-day existence. He has to carry on with life, but of a night when no one's looking, he was out walking the streets. And this lad, by the way, I don't know why I'm telling you this story. I'm not sure if it's relevant, but for some reason it was relevant to me. Was this? I won't mention this lad's name, but he was a bit of a football hooligan, and he was he was a man who was renowned for being hard. And then all of a sudden, this like man who looks like he's made of granite was now crying, and he was saying to me, "Please make that film." And he told me that story, and I can't get that image out of my head. Now, I'm not saying that our film will help find people, and I'm not saying for 1 second that it offers any kind of, comfort to people who've lost loved ones, or maybe it does. I don't know, but it's certainly made with great sympathy towards people who've lost loved ones.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Just to let you know, the locking up what that one's on. Actually, obviously, you can go.
That's great. Thanks, Shell.
All right, no
Thanks,
problem.
Tom. So, I hope, does that answer your question, Elias?
Yes, it does. That was a question from Tape. So thanks for that, Tape. Rianne Lowe asks, where do you begin the process of looking for a missing person? And that is for Paul.
So the initial steps, of course, is someone making a police report, reporting the person missing. There's this persistent myth that you have to wait 24 hours to do that. That's not the case. It's really if someone's whereabouts are unknown, out of character, then report them to police. 101 is the first place to start, and then basically depending on the risk assessment that the police make at the time, that will determine what resources they put into finding someone. We know that all the families that we speak to have got someone missing would want, the police to leave no stone unturned straight away to find that person. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Often because of resourcing, and it's amazing considering the amount of CCTV and technology that people can still go missing as often. And the police will start an investigation, and they'll take DNA from the person. They'll be tracking down their last steps, speaking to people, and then we come in working with the police to kind of help create a publicity campaign to help find the person. And we create posters which people can download and print. We also put them on social media so people can share them. And the purpose of our appeals is kind of twofold. It encourages the public to pass sighting information onto that, which we can pass on to the police. And sometimes that's people are more they might for some reason not want to talk to the police, so they can actually call us, pass the information anonymously, confidentially, and we'll pass it on to the police. But also our posters and our publicity appeals directly to the missing person themselves, so that they're in a situation where they do see the poster, to let them know there's this free confidential helpline they can call to get some advice, to talk through their next steps, and just let them know that there is that option there. And then really, I guess it's then just the police keeping the investigation going. It's obviously the huge majority of missing cases are resolved within a relatively short amount of time. And by resolved, sometimes that means there isn't a positive outcome. Someone might be found dead, but of course, it's those longer term ones that then become a lot harder. And I think it would be very hard for police and families to keep up the momentum to try and kind of keep people looking, keep people thinking about things. And I mean, obviously, it's really, it's interesting what Carl said, and having seen the film myself, that sense of certain rituals that people go through, and it's almost like something that could have become a ritual that someone does in the early days of investigating. It's almost like if they stop doing that, they're letting their missing person down. And there's a huge part of what for families, it's really important that their missing person is still being looked for, and that people care. And obviously for someone like Alan in the film, Bill Nighy's character, it's that sense he doesn't want to die not knowing what's happened.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of our family members, particularly who are parents, and we've got one of the families we support, they had a sister who went missing over 50 years ago. And there's the worry that actually if they people don't want to die not knowing what's happened, but also the worry that once they're gone, who's going to keep looking, who's going to keep trying to resolve it, who's going to try and sort that out. So I've gone on a real tangent from asking how you start a missing persons investigation, but yeah, that's I think that's probably all for me for now.
Yeah. Well, just stay with you for a minute, Paul. My question is, what kind of circumstances were some of the causes for people to go missing?
I mean, if you think about it, it's whatever reasons can make. Well, obviously, there's two types of missing case, and what we would talk about when we're training our volunteers, we're training our staff. We'll talk about push and pull factors. That's things that might be making you, external things that might be making you leave, which could be abduction, exploitation, criminal exploitation, child exploitation, and then push factors such as unhappy situations at home, problems with people's mental health, debt, finance. So really, it could be 1,000 different reasons why someone might go missing if they're going missing of their own accord, and combinations of those things. And of course, we talk about whether people are choosing to go missing, and sometimes it's not that straightforward because it might be the headspace that they're in that possibly seems like the only option. If you sometimes think along the same lines of people who are maybe planning to take their own life, quite a lot of people who are missing until for that reason, and then maybe they don't take their own life but they stay missing. And again, it's almost like people don't feel like they really have the control or don't have the options. Sometimes people have to because home isn't safe where they live. There might be lots of problems there, and actually being away might be the only option for them. So there's loads and loads of different things, and what we train our volunteers and staff to do is, obviously we can't be an expert in every single issue that somebody comes to us with, so it's all about giving people that space just to talk about what's going on. Right. And to open up and ask the gentle questions, ask open questions, because a lot of the times people will maybe have a sense of what's going on in their life, maybe have a sense of what some of the solutions might be, but it's not until you speak to someone that you can then think those through. And also, people don't ever want to worry family members or other people, so sometimes the fact they can speak to someone who's neutral and just kind of calm and warm can really help with that. And similarly for the families who want some support when someone's missing, again, they can be very isolated. And it's interesting, having seen Carl's film, there's so many different dynamics within a family, and people respond to a missing incident in different ways. One person may feel like they want to stop thinking about it and move on, whereas another family member might want to make sure that they're always talking about the other person. So in both for families of missing people and people who are missing themselves, quite often where we can help is giving them that space to talk about what's going on, talk about the emotions, not be scared of how someone's going to respond. And we aim to allow people's emotions to be present on a call or a chat or a text message, and kind of allow people for us to kind of hold them during that space.
Okay.
Yeah. Back to the audience questions now, and there's a question for Carl from Paul Penlington of Facebook. He asks, Bill Nighy, Alan's actor, is obviously a big box office draw. Any advice how people can raise funds for independent films without access to big names?
Whoa, that's we need many hours for me to answer that question properly. Well, I suppose when you make a feature film, this is a very who is it? Paul who asked the question. Paul Pennington.
Paul Penlington.
Okay. Apologies, Paul. I'm going to give you the most boring answer you will always hate me for. But when you make a feature film, the feature film has to be insured, which is the dullest thing I think I've ever said in my life. But anyway, it has to be insured. For obvious reasons, if something goes wrong with the film, someone's ill, the director goes AWOL or whatever, but films have to be insured. And in order for them to be insured, they have to be above a certain budget. Now, to get a film above a certain budget, the reason it'd be a bigger budget is because you'd have known actors in it. So it's a bit kind of catch-22. So if you make a film and it isn't insured, there'll be an awful lot of people who won't get involved in it because of that fear. Like, for instance, if I was an investor and Paul was making a film and it had say a £300,000 budget, which is still a lot of money, by the way. Now, I might want to put, say, £100,000 in. But in order for me to do that, I'd need a list of guarantees. Because if I put my £100,000 in and then Paul says to me in 6 weeks' time, I'm really sorry about this, but we didn't finish the film because it rained every day, or the actor ran away, or the camera person became very ill, or we had equipment stolen, or whatever. So it needs to be insured. But again, with insurance policies, the only way to do that really is you have to attract other people to the project. So it's a bit of a catch-22. However, if you are looking to raise more money, then kind of known actors will make your job a bit easier to raise more money because of the box office draw. But my experience of working with kind of known actors is my experience is a very good one, I have to say. They tend to be actors, certainly well-known ones, they tend to be really kind of charitable, and they're very, very keen to keep the art of filmmaking going. So although I might be terrified to say to Daniel Craig, will you be in this £450,000 feature film? Now, that as a sentence, you'd go, that's never going to happen. James Bond in a £400,000 feature film, that's just never, ever going to happen. However, if for whatever reason you got Daniel Craig that script and he read it and he liked it, the chances are, one is he doesn't need the money. So he's not doing it for any kind of financial reasons. But what he is doing it for is he's an actor, which means acting is an art form. And maybe your particular flavour of film is offering someone like Daniel Craig the opportunity to do the thing people aren't giving them the chance to do. And the same would apply to Olivia Colman or to Bill or to lots of big names. So my advice would be, if you can approach these people, then I would approach them, because you never know. They might just say, they might go, well, I'm an actor and no one's ever going to cast me in this very strange East European-esque art house film because people want me in a particular comedy or a particular spy film or whatever. So my advice is, Paul, just ask. I mean, the very worst thing that's going to happen is they'll say no. And that's the worst that'll happen. And the other good thing about asking is, when you ask someone and then they say no, which is fine, but usually in that kind of world of asking people, when someone says no, the chances are someone else has heard about it then. So, for instance, if Daniel Craig was reading your script, even though he's going to say no, somewhere on the grapevine, somebody's got wind of that. And then you find you get an email saying, oh, excuse me, I hope you don't mind me contacting you. My name is such a person. I've shot 7 feature films. This script really interests me. I appreciate there's very little money in it. But if you raise the money, I'll do it. And all of a sudden, you've got this really brilliant photographer or an actor or a sound designer or an editor. So the thing is, by asking people, you find yourself in a world where I call it the chattering classes. And trust me, they do chatter. But in a good way, by the way, in a very good way.
Right. Well, we're almost out of time, but I have a question for you, Carl. So stay with me. When you saw the final piece of the film, what were your best and worst moments
of your film or my film?
Your film.
Are my producers listening to this? Are they tuned in? Just so
I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
Because when I slag them off now, I just want to make sure they don't sue me.
No, it's just you. It's just you.
Oh, all right, they wouldn't anyway. We're good friends. Well, my favourite part of the film actually is the Scrabble game where they sat in, where the 3 of them were playing Scrabble in the hotel. I like that a lot, partly because it's so well scripted, and the performances from the 3 actors is brilliant. I can't fault it. I think they did such a great job. And in a weird way, as a standalone film, if you were to throw the rest of the film away and just have that film, that scene on its own, you could watch that on its own. It's almost like a standalone film. So I like that. And also, I like the idea that you've got a film which is based around the obsession of words, but populated by people who can't communicate. And I think that Scrabble film, the Scrabble scene, I think that does that really well. It makes you realise these are all wordsmiths, but they can't talk to each other. So I like that. And also, I learned a few new words. Like Muzjika and Griot. And my worst bit is the end of the film, or the version that you've seen, ends with an empty chair. Do you remember that, the last scene?
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, which is fine. I like it. It's good. That wasn't the original ending. The original ending, which still makes me very bitter and angry. And if you bumped into my producers, the first thing they would say to you is, "Did you interview Carl?" You'd say, "Yeah." And they'll go, "Did he go on and on and on about the ending we deleted?" And I'll go, "Yeah," because they know what I'm about to say. Anyway, we shot an alternative ending. And the alternative ending is based on a brilliant film from the 1940s, I think, which stars David Niven, called A Matter of Life and Death. And in A Matter of Life and Death, David Niven plays a pilot who's been shot down in the Second World War. And he's on an operating theatre. But it cuts to David Niven is on a staircase which wanders through space and goes on forever. And basically he's walking up the staircase and he meets people on the way. And the staircase becomes a metaphor for life and death. So if he carries on walking up the stairs and gets to the very top, which is infinity, so he can't really get there, well, that means he's passed into heaven. If he stays where he is, he's in limbo. And of course, if he wanders down the stairs, then he'll survive. So the staircase really is a metaphor for his life. It's a film I love. And that visual statement is so powerful. So I stole it. I'd like to be clever in my kind of understanding of film language, but I just stole it. So I had a staircase built in green, a green staircase, and I put Bill on the staircase. And what happens is, we see the empty chair cut. Bill is at the bottom of his staircase in his house, and he puts one foot on the staircase, and he begins to walk up. And as he's walking up the staircase, he does this. He looks at the wall. And when he looks at the wallpaper morphs from being birds into outer space. And then when he looks the other way, at the staircase that he stood on, the staircase now isn't in his house. It's in outer space. And when he looks up the staircase, that's now in outer space. So the staircase just wanders and wanders and wanders and wanders into outer space. And then Bill just starts this very slow but very happy wander up the staircase. It's beautiful. It'll make you cry. It looked amazing. And the people who did the visual effects did such a good job. It was absolutely incredible. And on the day that scene was cut, the editor dropped it into the end of the film, called a meeting, which is normal, to say, we're going to show scenes 166, 167, and 168 for approval, or whatever they would say in those days. And we all sat in this mini theatre, and we played the ending to the film, which I loved, I was proud of. I just thought, if I never make a film again, I don't care, because I've done the one thing I've always wanted to do, which is a magnificent, beautiful cinematic statement. And it was hated. It was hated.
Well, yeah, we're just about out of time.
Yeah. Well, before we go, I was just going to ask one final question, which was going to be both for Paul and for Carl. And this is a question that's we usually ask at the end, and it's just what's next for Missing People and for Carl Hunter. So, Paul, if what's next for Missing People?
So we aim to still be here. Obviously, the pandemic's been incredibly challenging across the board for many reasons. We've had to move our operations remotely. Hopefully one day we'll be able to get back into the office to do it. But obviously we need to have money to keep going, and a lot of money that was normally around for charities and things, it just isn't there anymore. Nobody's got as much money, so we need to try really hard to keep awareness of what we're doing for people to support us. Because we're not funded by the government or anything. We're just there by voluntary donations and grants and trusts and things like that. So, yeah, we just need to keep there, and we just need to keep making sure we're there for people, because that's what we're there for.
And just before we go, Carl, what's next in the pipeline for you?
Well, hopefully another film. I've got a script which is somewhere in this room, and it's finished. And it's just started its rounds of trying to raise finance. So, which is an interesting point to be with a film. But at the same time, it's almost, because I don't get involved in financing. So there's a bit where you put all this energy into, I don't write the script, Frank writes it. So you put all this energy into the script, and then all of a sudden it disappears from my fingers. And then I have to wait for information to come like this way, to say, oh, someone wants to meet you, someone's interested in funding the film, blah, 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 etc. So the waiting game starts for me. But a question for Paul, though, is I haven't seen the film, Paul. And by the way, don't feel you've got to answer the question, but it's just something which I am interested in, is tonally, did we get it right as a film by missing people?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, actually, because I must admit, because obviously it's my work. Sometimes I'm a bit resistant to missing base stuff. There's so many books and so many films, and sometimes it can be a bit crass. And actually, I watched the film. I actually watched it this morning, and it was great. And I thought the tone was really great, because I think you captured that persistent dysfunction. Because what people take for granted is that life isn't 100% perfect when someone goes missing. People already have odd relationships and strange and whatever, and then this thing happens, and they're kind of almost suspended in that. So I think that the strange relationship between Alan and his son that's already there came across really well. And I think the the scene with them playing Scrabble, and then when you find out that they're both, the coincidence they're both there for the same reason, because of the body that's been found.
Yeah.
That was incredibly moving, because we hear that all the time. Like every time we hear a body found in the media, we think of our families, or we speak to family members we work with, and they've got that hope that it is them and it isn't them in the same time. And it's like, yes, this nightmare's over if it is them, but then it does mean that we're admitting that our son's dead. And so that was really well. So yeah, tonally, I thought it was really gentle, and I don't mean that in a patronising way, but I think it was really gentle, as in, not showy about the missing side, and really got across that sense of how it's with the missing incident with you all the time, and the missing person is with you and in your mind all the time, and it can create such strange situations and stuff. So yeah, I thought it was great in that respect. Well done.
Oh, that's good. I mean, we were kind of like anything. You make a film. Well, you make a film about people. There's always that real fear that that you offend someone, or you upset someone, or you damage someone. But there's the end scene where Alan and his son meet up, and they play Scrabble, and Alan thinks he's going to find this. It could be Michael, And then when they start talking. And it's the subtext of the conversation, which I find really powerful, which is Frank, who's a brilliant writer. And that thing about when he says, I'm all there is. But you know what I got for my days? I got ordinary.
Yeah. That was really great, really moving in that way. Because of course there is that thing about, they're two brothers and they're comparing them. He's comparing himself to this other brother who's always going to be visualized as the, there's that he's not grown up, he's not had any failure, he's whatever. So it's easy, that analogy of the prodigal son is a really good one to draw, but then actually just say, actually, what I've got and what we've had together is just ordinary. We've had life together, which is obviously what the missing brother hasn't had. That was a really, really nice touch, that, I thought.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm glad. You just made me very happy.
Good.
Thanks for your time today. Anyway, so we've got to wrap up shortly, haven't we, Elliot?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do have some news. What's coming up in April? Our next film will be My Feral Hearts on day 3, and that is from the 23rd to the 25th of April. We will have interviews with the director Duncan Paveling and the main actor Stephen Brandon. Our festival partner will be North Wales Down Syndrome Association. And we will also have another interview with Seema Gonzai from the partner as well. So that is just around about it for tonight. A big thank you to you, Carl and Paul, for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having us.
And to everyone else who sent in your questions, a big thank you. And sorry if we couldn't get through all of them.
But try and get around to them if we can.
We got through there in the end.
Anyway, this is the. Sorry, do you want to carry on? Like Tom said at the beginning, due to technical difficulties this weekend, Sometimes Always Never will hopefully be available for streaming this Easter weekend on the 3rd and 4th of April. Lovely. Anyway, just going to close the meeting by saying thank you to you both, and thank you for being for co-hosting with me, Elliot, and hopefully we'll be able to collaborate more on more episodes. And just going to close this by saying this is a One Movie Film Festival, the Tate Community Music and Film, and it's just, one film speaks 1,000 words. So, good night. See you next time.
Well put. Thanks, Elliot, Tom, and Paul. It was a pleasure meeting you.
You too.
Everyone.
Steve's got my details, Paul. If you want to hook up at any point to chat about the film, or there's anything you might want to use from the film or whatever, then
Great.
just give me details from Steve.
Great. Thank you so much. That'd be great.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.